tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Especially this time of year, it affects our business.
Local stores feel the pinch as Canada Post workers hit the picket lines.
We want to be able to keep up with inflation and have a living wage.
They are denying service to Canadians right across the country.
Plus,
we can't tell the people, just bring the goose in, because we don't want them handling it.
A BC wildlife sanctuary is flooded with calls about sick birds as a teenager fights a severe strain of avian flu. And
But I have the hat and jersey and outfit for every other team.
Grey Cup brings the country together. It is awesome.
fans count down to the biggest day in Canadian football. We check in ahead of Sunday's Grey Cup at BC Place.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. If you're planning to mail a letter or send a parcel through Canada Post, you may want to hold off. All 55,000 members of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers have gone on strike.
What we want? A fair contract! What we want? A fair contract! No justice! No peace! No.
Workers across the country walked off the job overnight, and their union and Canada Post failed to reach a new collective agreement. Despite a year of negotiations, talks are still on, but the two sides remain far apart on key issues, including wages. The Crown Corporation is offering an 11.5% wage hike over 4 years. The union is pushing for almost double that. Canada Post says it's struggling to stay afloat because of competition from private carriers. It says despite the strike, essential checks like old age security will still be delivered. Now, the strike is impacting millions of Canadians and small businesses across this country. Some say the timing could not be worse as the busy holiday season inches closer. As Michelle Gassoub reports, local stores are hoping for a resolution and fast.
In Kitsilano's Shoes on 4th, holiday shopping is in full swing, but some sales have hit a snag.
We received an email from our head office to stop all deliveries to Canada Post, and it really, especially this time of year, it affects our business.
Unions, united!
This store, one of many feeling the impacts of a strike at Canada Post. 55,000 postal workers have traded their delivery routes for picket lines. After a year of bargaining, the union and employer are at an impasse over issues like wages, pensions, medical leave, and weekend delivery.
They are denying service to Canadians right across the country. And the farther you get out, there's remote and rural and northern communities that rely on the postal service, especially the businesses too these days that are in the holiday period and counting on Canada Post.
The Crown Corporation says it has no choice but to cut costs. The union says the price of labor isn't responsible for Canada Post's financial woes.
We want to be able to keep up with inflation and have a living wage. As working for a Crown Corporation, we should be leading the way and not get involved in a race to the bottom.
Caught in the middle are online businesses like Sweet Legs in Kelowna. 30% of their orders are filled by Canada Post.
Their costs are drastically less. PO boxes, as you know, they're the only ones who deliver to PO boxes. And areas like Ontario and Quebec and or remote regions of Canada are almost exclusively Canada Post, or else nobody can afford to deliver there.
Businesses say it's just the latest hit after a challenging few years, following the pandemic, disruptions at BC ports, and sky-high inflation. They're hoping to see a quick resolution.
The workers deserve their raise and what they feel their worth is. I hope it ends fast for them, and I hope that we get our parcels moving again.
During previous work stoppages, the government sent Canada Post employees back to work. So far, the feds say there are no plans to intervene. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
A BC teenager remains in critical condition in hospital after contracting a severe strain of avian flu. BC's chief veterinarian says wetlands in the Fraser Valley have been showing high levels of the virus. And as John Hernandez reports, one wildlife sanctuary says it has been inundated with calls.
It's just been a real nightmare.
Wildlife sanctuary operator Elizabeth Melnick hasn't been able to treat as many birds as she'd like to. For the past few weeks, she's received an onslaught of phone calls, up to 30 a day, from people who have found sick, injured, or dead birds.
We can't tell the people, just bring the goose in, because we don't want them handling it. They need to leave it. And with the volume of calls we get every day, there's hundreds and hundreds littered all over the Fraser Valley.
Melnick is being extra careful after authorities say a Richmond teenager contracted the severe H5N1 strain of avian flu. Health officials say the teen, who is in critical condition, likely came into contact with the virus in the environment. Vets and sanctuary operators like Melnick are asked to take extreme precautions.
Getting them in is financially taxing as well, because you need to put a gown on, gloves, a mask, and be so careful.
BC's chief veterinarian says wetland sediments and spots where birds gather have shown high levels of the virus. Migratory birds, including geese, are believed to be the primary carriers, and the virus has spread to 28 farms.
Yeah, it's very challenging for the farmers involved, devastating. I mean, these are family farms. Farmers live and work on these farms. They work with these animals every day and care for them.
In response, Ottawa has earmarked more than $5 million for avian flu research to try to see how it has spread to people and how existing vaccines might fight it.
Because of the case in Canada, because of what we're seeing internationally, we activated our rapid response and were able to get this $5 million out the door very quickly.
No other humans have tested positive for the disease, but more than 6 million birds have been culled in BC since 2022. John Hernandez, CBC News, Abbotsford.
It is the BC government's response to calls to fast-track housing. The province's Housing Supply Act is meant to support cities and towns and push them to build more housing more quickly. It sets targets on okaying new builds. But as Chad Pawson explains, only 3 of 10 municipalities given 5-year housing targets have met their 1-year quota.
The District of North Vancouver, Victoria, and Delta, all standouts under provincial orders to meet housing targets. Meanwhile, Abbotsford, Oak Bay, and West Vancouver haven't done as well, 1 year into a 5-year plan to get residents into new homes in communities the province determined have the greatest need. Oak Bay's mayor says his community is working hard, despite only completing a net 16 new units instead of the 56 the province told it to do.
I think we're the interesting test case in Oak Bay, largely because we're less than half the size of the next largest entity. And that means we have much more limited number of staff. And so a lot of these changes are significantly more impactful.
On the other side of the ledger, the city of Delta produced a net 561 new homes, exceeding its provincial target of 514. Delta's mayor says it was all to do with strong efforts to approve projects at all stages of development.
Consensus with council to ensure that we removed a lot of blockage that have been happening over many, many years. We streamlined really well and had a really good response from our staff.
In announcing housing targets, BC's Housing Ministry said the measure would provide 38% more housing than was initially planned in these 10 communities. The province also set guidelines for a variety of homes, such as multiple bedroom units and below-market rentals. Despite the vast amounts of units Victoria has built above the order, it admits there's still more to do to create those much-needed 3-bedroom family-friendly units and units at below-market rents. It's something the city of Vancouver is also grappling with. It was one of 7 municipalities not to meet the bar, hitting only 80% of the year 1 target. And those units were already in the pipeline, housing starts that began 3 to 5 years ago.
So obviously with the pandemic, we did see a slowdown post-pandemic with housing construction. Right. And there's been many factors that I know have affected everyone, including higher interest rates, inflation, labor shortage, etc. But things have really accelerated, and we will exceed those targets over the next 5 years.
The progress report from this cohort of 10 municipalities are on their way to Victoria. That's where they'll be assessed by the Housing Ministry. It says it wants to understand challenges and opportunities to keep the housing coming, and compliance measures for underachievers could be part of meeting the total quota due 4 years from now. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
People across this province will now have more options to get from point A to B and beyond. Uber says it's expanding across BC as of early next year. Still, the ability for you to actually get a ride depends on how many drivers sign up. To try to attract more eligible employees, the ride-sharing company is offering an incentive. If somebody completes their profile and takes 10 trips all within the first 4 weeks of signing up, they can get $500. After a slow spring and sluggish summer, Canada's housing market is now showing signs of life. Nisha Patel dives into what could be behind that upswing.
Just 10 days after a for sale sign went up, this Toronto house has sold.
Buyers have more choice. They have come back to the market stronger than it was in the summer. So the second floor sleeping quarters.
Realtor Josie Stern says the housing market is more balanced and buyers are in a better position than they were a few years ago.
They can negotiate on the price, which isn't something that is possible when there's a low supply market. They can negotiate their terms. They can finally put a condition on financing or inspection.
National home sales in October jumped 30% compared to a year ago. In major cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal, sales have spiked by double digits. So the Bank of Canada's interest rate cuts may finally be having an impact as lower borrowing costs pull some buyers off the sidelines.
The numbers make sense for me at current interest rates. I felt comfortable, biting the bullet, taking the plunge.
Ozzy Osman has been renting for years, waiting for the right opportunity. He bought his first home in Montreal last month.
I'm doing it to put down roots for my family, and it's a pretty universal aspiration, homeownership, right? And I think a lot of the younger generation are feeling desperate and, feeling like they can't get that, and it's sad.
While home prices have moderated over the past 2 years, the average selling price these days is still nearly 30% higher compared to 2019.
Even though we have those new relaxed mortgage rules taking effect soon, we think it'll take a little bit more time before affordability is improved enough to allow a larger number of potential buyers to re-enter the market.
So for many Canadians, that dream of home ownership may still be out of reach. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, 'tis the season of giving, and as winter approaches, many people are in need of warm clothing and some place to stay. A nonprofit group called Blanket BC is making giving easier with their annual winter campaign called Drive on the Line, collecting new or gently used blankets, warm clothing, and money along 9 Canada Line stations between Vancouver and Richmond. That includes Richmond Brighouse, Bridgeport, Marine Drive, Yaletown Roundhouse, Vancouver City Centre, and Waterfront.
The demand now is higher than ever before. Since the pandemic, it's only gotten worse. It seems that there are more and more middle-class folks going through harder times. And then, of course, you're middle class and you're now one paycheck away from being on the street.
Blanket BC was started by Old and his son Benjamin in 2005 and donates blankets throughout the year to shelters, programs, and families. A portion of Highway 7 near Hope is closed after it was hit by a rock slide. Take a look. BC's Transportation Ministry says the rockfall caused significant pavement damage to Highway 7 west of Hague Scale. It also downed hydro lines. No vehicles were hit and there were no injuries reported. Still, the ministry says it's checking the damage and there was no estimated reopening time. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says the intense rainfall and flooding that hit BC in October has led to more than $100 million in damage claims. The Bureau says insurers have been working with clients since the Category 4 atmospheric river hit last month. It says the rainfall led to overflowing rivers, sewer backups, and flooding on roads, parking garages, and basements across Metro Vancouver. Darius Madavi joins us with a look at the weather and precipitation forecast.
Yes, that's right. Another cold front is coming through. Tomorrow's going to be very chilly across the lower mainland. Here in downtown Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, probably only going to get up to around 4 degrees as our high tomorrow. Very chilly. But then things start to come up a little bit as we head into early next week. Still not warm, I'd say, but a little bit better. We're continuing to see that precipitation move down the island. Lots of snow coming in many areas because freezing levels are quite low, only around 800 meters. At times this weekend, they may come down as low as 500 meters as well. Going to see that reach the lower mainland probably tomorrow, mid to late morning, and then continue to work its way inland into the interior as well. Winds will also be quite strong at times, so be aware of that. And overall, Dan, it's looking like quite an unsettled and chilly weekend across BC.
Okay, thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Coming up, it's the Bombers versus the Argos for the Grey Cup this Sunday in Vancouver. After the break, we touch base with fans of other teams who are just as excited about the big gridiron matchup. Stick around. Grey Cup partiers are taking to the streets here in Vancouver to celebrate Canadian football and fandom and of Sunday's final at BC Place. Liam Britton hit the Grey Cup festivities to chat with fans.
Okay, well, the Grey Cup is bringing a lot of zip to Vancouver this weekend, and I'm not just talking about the passing game on the field. Here off the field at Canada Place, Canadian football fans from across the country have descended on this city to celebrate the game.
Sunday will see the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Toronto Argonauts clashing Canada's biggest football game. But even those with loyalties for teams not on the field are flying their colors at Canada Place.
Okay, well, our team is the Ticats, okay, but we're also season ticket holders for the Argos.
Some who fly many colors, like Sherry and Steve Bashrak.
But I have the hat and jersey and outfit for every other team. So at every Argo game, because we love the CFL, I wear the hat and jersey and cheer for the other team.
Stamps fans had a flipping strong contingent. Brothers Jason and Jamie Cameron were here to fly the flag and take in the fandom fellowship.
Grey Cup brings the country together. It is awesome. Exactly what you said, right? It's different teams in different places. So.
I'm from Halifax, so I fly from opposite side of the country to come out and represent and just have a good time.
Camaraderie was a common theme for fans. Many have been to a dozen Grey Cups or more. 15, 20.
This will be our 28th Grey Cup. And yeah, it's we're football fans, number one, I guess. You know, Rider fans, number two.
In an unscientific jersey count, it appears Bombers faithful have the edge over Argonaut fans. David White and his crew are hopeful the team pulls it out.
And they've been a good team for a few years, so it'd be nice to finish off with a win, and then, you know, maybe next year some other teams can represent the West and even it out a little bit. But
maybe the Lions' turn.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I love the fact that there's more Bombers fans here. More tears at the end of the day.
Argos faithful David Brown completely unfazed and forecasting a narrow win.
I'm going to say the Argos by 3 points.
Predictions will be tested at the 111th Grey Cup game Sunday. But for now, the party is just kicking off. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
So as we heard, it's Toronto versus Winnipeg for the Grey Cup on Sunday. And fans in Manitoba have had plenty to cheer about these days. On the ice, the Jets are already crushing it so far. While on the gridiron, the Blue Bombers are in their 5th straight Grey Cup. Cameron McIntosh has more.
In front, they score!
A record-setting start. The Winnipeg Jets are the fastest NHL team to reach 15 wins, ever, and sit first overall. While in the CFL, the Blue Bombers are getting a 5th straight shot at the Grey Cup. That's a lot of winning.
This is Winnipeg Sports Talk.
For Winnipeg sports podcasters Andrew Hustler-Patterson and Michael Remus, it's been a lot to handle.
The Jets to be doing what they're doing, the Bombers to be on the precipice of a Cup championship. It's a special time for Winnipeg sports fans.
I mean, these are things that we may not see for a long time.
Earlier this year, both runs seemed improbable. The Bombers started 0-4. Their season looked lost, but they got rolling, all the way to another Grey Cup appearance. But that comes with its own pressure. They've won 2 and lost 2. Win a third, it's a dynasty. Lose a third, it's a disappointment. Winnipeg's coach feels it.
Yeah, it means everything.
Still.
Absolutely.
On the ice, the Jets are currently leading the NHL in wins, defying expectations after a disappointing playoffs. There's still a lot of season ahead, but, say hockey analysts, the Jets look elite.
You've got to have some breaks and some luck that goes your way, but generally I think they've earned everything they've gotten at the beginning of the year. They've had a lot of games they've deserved to win.
Fans certainly relishing it all. Neil Einerson proudly wearing the colors of both teams.
It's not going to last forever, so we have to enjoy every moment of it.
And happy times in Rodney and Shauna Legault's Sports Den basement, with the understanding no one has really won anything yet.
This year is just phenomenal so far, so fingers crossed that it keeps going.
Still, a great time to be living and cheering in the moment.
Go Bombers! Go Jets! Woo!
Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Sunny skies beat down on the snowy ski hills of Mount Washington, all on the island. The hills are still quiet with no skiers or boarders just yet, but there is the promise of snow to come. A lot of it. Darius Madavi's coming up with a look at the full BC-wide forecast and what promises to be a wet weekend for a lot of us. The famous portrait of Winston Churchill, known as the Roaring Lion, is back in its rightful place. The photograph by Canadian Joseph Karsh was stolen from the Fairmont Chateau Laurier in Ottawa. Paul Hunter was there today for its homecoming.
There it is, stolen from this wall in late 2021, early 2022, replaced on the wall at the time by a fake, later recovered by Ottawa police in Italy, then repatriated to Canada, reframed here in Ottawa, and now, finally, back where it belongs, on the wall here at the Chateau Laurier Hotel in Ottawa. The unveiling itself, a huge moment for all involved. What a journey it had been for this portrait of Winston Churchill, taken by famed Canadian photographer Joseph Karsh in 1941, shortly after Churchill had given a wartime speech on Parliament Hill. It's one of the most iconic photo portraits on the planet. And as everyone at today's ceremony can attest, a true Canadian treasure. Among those at the jam-packed unveiling, Hotel General Manager Geneviève Dumas, who never lost hope it would one day return.
And the fact that it's here, the goosebumps were back. This is for the world to see, and I'm just beyond proud, beyond proud.
And yes, there is heightened security on this now. There's a plexiglass barrier over the whole thing. It is bolted to the wall all the way around it. If anyone dares reach underneath and even nudges the portrait, it will set off a loud siren. As Geneviève Dumas put it, this isn't going anywhere ever again. As for the investigation into the heist, a man arrested in the case faces multiple charges. His next court appearance is March 2025. But all of that is still to come. What matters for now is the Roaring Lion, as it's known, is home. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Ottawa.
An update now on Canada's premier renovation. Construction teams say work on the Parliament buildings in Ottawa is on schedule and a third complete. The CBC's David Thurton took a tour.
Canada's largest restoration project 4 years in is deep into construction and about to enter another year. Much of the focus will soon be on this massive hole. Crews are getting ready to install more construction cranes.
The tower cranes will allow us to move and install material within the excavations.
Those cranes will help build the new Welcome Center at the base of the Peace Tower. When it's complete, the new center will look like this: a sprawling underground space with enough capacity to welcome 750,000 visitors annually, double the current capacity. While plans are unfolding for those discovering Parliament Hill for the first time, restoration crews are discovering original elements in this room that were hidden under layers of paint.
Right before move-out, the ceiling was white, and based on architectural paint research, we've been able to identify it was in fact gilded for gold, so that will be reinstated.
Crews hope to restore rooms like the Speaker's dining room to its original look. Meanwhile, masons are restoring century-old brickwork.
It's a very important finish.
This buffalo will also replace stonework that was damaged and beyond repair.
I'm very proud to have worked on this stone. This isn't the sort of thing that we get on our workbenches very often. You know, we were born 100 years too late for that.
According to officials, this massive project is still on budget and still on time, but it's going to be a while before construction wraps up. Cineblock won't open to the general public for at least another 8 years. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
A new treatment is generating excitement in the fight against cancer. What's exciting is that it targets cancer cells and nothing else. Mike Crawley explains.
This is his PET scan, and you can see the...
Dr. David Laidley shows Linda Amaral what's happening with her husband's cancer.
Liver lesions here and here.
Gilbert Amaral has had neuroendocrine cancer since 2011. It affects cells that regulate hormone production throughout the body.
Lymph node here.
At this hospital in London, Ontario, Amaral has become one of the first people in Canada to be treated with the radioactive isotope actinium-225. It's part of a worldwide clinical trial testing the newest frontier in cancer treatment, targeted alpha therapy.
We have a high expectation that
like the trial will be successful.
Unlike traditional radiation, with beams of energy shot from outside the body, targeted alpha therapy is delivered by an injection. Molecules specially designed to bond only to cancer cells carry radioactive isotopes through the body in search of their targets. Once a molecule latches onto a cell, the isotope shoots an alpha particle inside, literally shredding its DNA without damaging cells that are healthy.
This is another line of treatment that adds more hope for cancer patients.
This scientist says, compared with alpha therapy, existing radiation treatments are like throwing golf balls in a glass shop.
This is like throwing a bowling ball, so it will cause a lot more damage, but in a much more limited area.
And because of that, alpha therapy doesn't require a bunker to contain its radiation.
If we can treat people without having to bring them to the hospital, this represents a very big change for our healthcare system. So I'm very excited about it.
No targeted alpha therapy has been approved for use outside clinical trials, but several are in the final stages of testing and could be ready for approvals within the next few years. Researchers see its potential in treating pancreatic, prostate, and breast cancer.
I think that this is the next kind of emerging therapy.
Pretty good.
Linda Amaral's hopes for her husband in this clinical trial?
Maintaining where he is now and hopefully even getting better.
Mike Crawley, CBC News, London, Ontario.
After the break, a dive into some of Donald Trump's controversial cabinet picks and what archaic rule he could employ to ensure they get the posts. Stick around. With Republicans in the United States winning control of the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, it's clear Donald Trump will have a powerful mandate to govern. But some members of his own party are concerned about some of his cabinet choices. This week, 3 controversial Trump supporters were tapped for key posts. Steve Futterman has more on who they are and an archaic rule that may ensure their places in power.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is one of the latest. Trump wants him to be Secretary of Health and Human Services.
We want you to come up with things and ideas and what you've been talking about for a long time, and I think you're going to do some unbelievable things.
But many believe having someone who is a skeptic about vaccines isn't a good fit.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
One of the things that was always certain was that the Secretary of Health and Human Services believed in science, believed in the power of public health science to improve people's lives.
Kennedy isn't the only outside-the-box nominee. Trump wants conservative firebrand Matt Gaetz, who has never tried a case in court, to be Attorney General, and former Fox News host Pete Hegseth to be Defense Secretary. Traditionally, nominees like Gaetz and Kennedy and Hegseth would need to be approved by the Senate. But there's a crack in the system that Trump has suggested he's willing to employ. It is called a recess appointment. If Congress is in adjournment for at least 10 days, an appointee can serve without being confirmed for up to 2 years. Some Republicans say they would go along with that.
So you support that recess appointment, and for Gaetz potentially. Sure.
The Wall Street Journal, often on Trump's side, has blasted the idea, calling it unconstitutional. It would eliminate one of the basic checks on power that the founders built into the American system. And Matt Gaetz could face another problem, a House ethics report on allegations that he was involved in sex trafficking with an underage girl. The report has been completed but not released. Some in Congress on both sides say they want to see that report. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Talks for a truce between Israel and Hezbollah ramped up today. Iran and the U.S. are now involved. And as Crystal Gumansing reports, Israel is keeping up the pressure on the Islamist group in Lebanon and the countries that support it.
A senior advisor to the Iranian supreme leader was in Beirut as Lebanese officials have a truce proposal in hand. It comes as Israel conducted airstrikes in the southern suburb of Beirut for the 4th consecutive day. Israel Defense Forces did issue evacuation notices for 2 neighborhoods before conducting those strikes. Images from the ground show large buildings being toppled in 2 neighborhoods. Lebanese state media described them as heavy strikes. They could be seen as a pressure tactic to persuade Lebanon and Hezbollah to accept the deal. The American truce plan is the first to be proposed to bring an end to fighting in Lebanon. Now, the Supreme Leader's advisor told local media in Beirut that Iran backs the Lebanese government in any talks, saying Iran is not looking to disrupt anything, and it shifted focus to Israel, calling it the disruptor. Israel launched its ground offensive, what it calls limited raids into Lebanon a month and a half ago. In a briefing on Thursday, Israeli officials said it had killed more than 2,000 Hezbollah operatives in that time, acknowledging the deaths of 52 Israeli soldiers in Lebanon. Now, Israel stated that its goal is to stop Hezbollah from posing a threat to Israel and allowing people living along the border to be able to return home. Israeli officials say weapons are being moved to Lebanon from Syria, and on Thursday conducted airstrikes around the capital of Damascus. Now, Israeli officials say they were targeting members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and that those sites were operated by that group. It's another group linked to Iran and a group that took part directly in the October 7th attacks along with Hamas. The spokesperson for the Israeli military, Daniel Hagari, said Israel will strike anywhere it is necessary. Crystal Gumansing, CBC News, London.
Help may be on the way for an untold number of people essentially trapped 4 kilometers underground in South Africa. As Chris Brown reports, they've been below the earth in a mine for weeks without food or other vital supplies after the government decided to crack down on their rogue industry.
Somewhere at the bottom of this abandoned South African gold mine, there could be hundreds, possibly more than 1,000 illegal miners. Their anxious families waiting above want them to come up, but if they do, police have said they'll be arrested.
We only want the police to help us so that we can take those people from underground so that they can come outside, because there they've been trapped without food, without water, without nothing.
From here, go down about 500 meters. We stay about 7 days, 1 week or 2 weeks.
The miners, known as zama-zamas, or take a chance in Zulu, are usually desperate people, many who once had proper mining jobs, who spend weeks underground digging for dust and ore.
This one is a gold.
South Africa's government ordered a crackdown 3 months ago and sealed off most exits to the mine, along with a warning from a top cabinet minister.
We're not sending help to criminals. We're going to smoke them out. They will come out.
Many stuck below are now believed to be too weak to come up on their own. But late Friday, after a meeting with advocates for the miners, the government's position appeared to soften.
We need a much more quicker process, because it is risky and dangerous for them to remain where they are.
It was agreed that the police will now send a rescue mission down.
Christopher Rutledge heads an NGO that's assisting the miners and was part of that key meeting. He says the challenge of illegal mining in South Africa is complex and difficult to change.
In some instances, corporate mines would close down their operation and then allow the zama-zamas to go into the mine, and they would buy the gold from the zama-zamas, from the artisanal miners, because it's cheaper for them.
It's unlikely the just-announced rescue mission will happen until Monday. The remaining miners are believed to be in the deepest sections, and the first task will be to send in food and water. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
A recent surge of gang violence is threatening Haiti's already tenuous connections with the rest of the world. The U.S. has temporarily banned flights in and out of the Caribbean nation after armed rebels reportedly fired at planes flying over the capital. It is something impacting one Kelowna-based charity that runs a school in a small fishing village in Haiti, about 60 kilometers north of Port-au-Prince, providing schooling and meals to 300 children every day.
Gangs want disruption, whether it's in Port-au-Prince or whether it's throughout the country. So we have had to close our school for small periods of time in the last 3 years, simply because of the safety of our staff and our children that attend it.
Elliott says the school operates as often as it can, and last year they were able to have a full school year despite the ongoing violence there. She says supporting families in getting fresh produce is becoming more challenging, but they hope to keep giving extra food support to students and families once or twice a year. Delegates at the COP29 conference in Azerbaijan are making little progress toward a deal to help developing nations adapt to climate change. Activists say richer countries need to raise up to $1 trillion every year. As Abiku of Austin reports, developing nations say they need that money in order to set ambitious climate goals.
Climate activists at COP29 say pay up. They're demanding the conference figure out a way to shell out the funds needed in order to tackle climate change.
If we reduce the fossil fuel subsidies, if we tax the richest, we could be already generating sources to pay for climate change.
A recent UN report highlighted the Earth is now on track to hit 3 degrees by the end of the century. But scientists say even more needs to be done. And so while the agenda in Baku is under the microscope, so is the host nation, Azerbaijan. A letter has been sent to the United Nations from scientists and senior climate figures who say the conference needs to be held more frequently, but also hosted by countries that back climate action and the phasing out of fossil fuels. It follows comments made by the Azerbaijani president Ilham Aliyev to attendees that oil and gas was, quote, a gift from God. And just days ago, further controversy after a BBC investigation found a senior Azerbaijani official using his COP role to organize meetings to make fossil fuel deals.
We just have to decide how long the world is going to cower
in front of the financial and political power of the fossil fuel industry. If we can find it within ourselves in every country to come together and make intelligent choices, we can solve this.
But further turmoil in Baku, too, as France and Azerbaijan are in a public diplomatic spat over overseas territories. Argentina has walked away from the conference altogether, and the European Union's negotiators suggested they are way off in agreeing to a finance target for COP29. Abby Kwadassin, CBC News, Berlin.
Darius Mondavi is here with this BC-wide weather forecast as we head into a frigid Grey Cup weekend.
Sounds about right, yeah. But some sunshine coming later in the weekend, going to return after, a couple more calm days. You can see all that water vapor that's coming in, affecting much of the province. Already seeing some snow in some parts of BC. Going to continue to see that work its way further and further south. Last I checked, keep in mind, North Island doesn't have radar coverage. Last I checked, there wasn't rain coming down just yet, but it's probably just starting within the next hour or two. We do have some special weather statements in place. This is for high waves at high tide tomorrow, sort of around noon, and then special weather statements in terms of rainfall for Vancouver and Howe Sound, and then for snow, the first, sticking snow on the Sea to Sky Highway from Squamish to Whistler could be 10 to 20 centimeters by the end of the day tomorrow. So some significant stuff here on the lower mainland, across up the Sea to Sky on the south coast, but also snow warnings in place for parts of the central interior and the southeast. So, and Highway 3, I should also mention, possibly getting up to 25 centimeters of snow. So again, widespread precipitation coming, spreading down very much of the province. A lot of snow that's going to continue throughout times in the weekend. Generally looking pretty unsettled as we head into the end of the weekend even as well. Sunday is more calm than it is tomorrow, but it's not like we're out of the woods. Temperatures will start to recover a little bit. Tomorrow's definitely our coldest day, but still unsettled. And then as we get into Monday, another more calm day, some more sunshine for many folks, but you can see off the coast here, we're starting to see a buildup of something. And here, as we get into Tuesday, the potential for some pretty stormy weather. It's a little up in the air right now. The models are really all over the place with this one. Some of them are calling for really ridiculous things, but it could be a pretty stormy one as we get into Tuesday as well. So just be aware of that. Have it on your radar, but I wouldn't take anything as gospel just yet. If you can see here, also some winds coming for parts of the coast, as well as breaking into parts of the interior as well, but generally the coast getting the worst of that. In terms of temperatures, those are, again, going to be lowest likely tomorrow. You can see a drop only going up to +1 in Kelowna tomorrow. Again, lots of snow coming even in the southern interior. They start to rebound a little bit as we head into the end of the weekend, but then another drop comes on Monday. So we're in that sort of unsettled period. Temperatures are fluctuating, precipitation is coming in and out across BC, and that's likely to continue into probably the end of the week, next week as well. As you can see here, again, lots of snow, lots of rain, lots of snow overnight transitioning into rain, especially in the central interior. And then in terms of a 5-day forecast, we even have the possibility of some snow here in Metro Vancouver at some of those higher terrain. SFU, possibly getting a few flakes tomorrow. So
it's been known to happen up there.
Yeah.
And since it's Friday, it's been known that this happens. Fuel Nerd Alert. It's Fun Fact Friday. Darius, we're going to dive now deep into the ocean with a fun fact on what pressure is like down there.
That's right. We're going as deep down as we possibly can. Dan, pop quiz. Do you know what ocean the Mariana Trench is in?
Yes, it's in the Pacific.
Well done. Yes, it is very close to Guam, actually. That is the closest country to the Mariana Trench. Pretty big, actually, but the deepest part is particularly called Challenger Deep. Now, the Mariana Trench spreads across a wide area, but the deepest part goes down about 11 kilometers below the surface. And you can see here we go, about, again, 11,000 meters below the surface. Pressure down there, 16,000 pounds per square inch. For context, that is, here we go, about 1,200 times the pressure here at sea level. And pounds per square inch is a nice measurement because it tells you exactly what it is. For every square inch of you, it's like there is a whole elephant, basically, on that 1 square inch of skin. So that's a lot of elephants pressing you in as many ways as possible, Dan. But also interesting is the fact that if we lost all of the water from the Earth, but it kept the same shape, we would get, here we go, this is my very interesting version of doing this.
Hold on your hats, folks.
Here we go. Challenger Deep.
Yeah.
It would still be 4 times sea level pressure. If you manage to make it 11 kilometers down, hike all the way down into the trench, 4 times sea level pressure, which is heavy for just air. Yeah.
I mean, fewer elephants, but
fewer elephants.
Not good for you overall. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Still to come, we'll take you to the first ever Indigenous marketplace as part of this year's Grey Cup Festival. You'll want to see this next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
Save the date and join us on Friday, December 6th at CBC's Make the Season Kind in support of food banks in British Columbia. The annual charity drive is filled with special programming and festive activities. Looking forward to seeing you on December 6th. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
This year's Grey Cup festivities include an Indigenous marketplace for the first time, with 17 unique vendors.
Santana Drever went to find out why it's such an important event for local creators and business owners.
How does it feel to be a part of an event like the Grey Cup?
Pretty exciting, actually. It's neat. It's you get to see a lot of sport, like people
I think sports brings people together. And you see the excitement of a big event like this. I think it brings unity.
Actually, when Eric first called and asked me to be here, I cried. This is huge.
It's incredible. It's such an honor to be here. I love football, so it's really cool to be here.
It's always encouraging meeting the public and the things they have to say, and the encouragements they have.
I feel like it just gives everybody the opportunity to see Indigenous art and learn more about it and support Indigenous businesses.
There is a lot of different tribes here as well, so it's really cool to see that from their homelands.
Who comes to a football game and thinks we're on Indigenous unceded land, right? So it's really bringing that awareness to the everyday public. And we're just getting an opportunity to say we're here, we're on the land, and we want you to be part of our lives as well, and we want to be a part of your lives. Quite often a lot of people think, oh no, I can't wear it for regalia. But no, we actually want you to wear it. If it was for our cultural regalia, I wouldn't be selling it, right? So it's an opportunity for people to appreciate our culture. And by wearing a piece that we've made, yes, it's honoring to us as well.
I buy my art from different artists around BC, and I put them to work. I also promote for other artists who can't travel like we do, so they have a chance to make sales while they're busy doing something else.
So what was your original inspiration to get into clay work and beading?
I think I just wanted to find a way to express my indigeneity and to reclaim my culture, and I find it very therapeutic, and I just really enjoy being a part of the Indigenous artist community, and it's helped me meet a lot of other artists.
It's beautiful stuff. Love those colors.
Christmas is coming up.
I know. Good idea. Exactly. And something you can wear at the game.
Yeah.
If you're going on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes. Should be fun.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
We will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Good night. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe and enjoy the Grey Cup.